Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Terrace legends, Black Danny, Aston Villa, Sea Crew and Hardcore. His story. I was born and originally brought up in Gloucester, not exactly a hotbed of football, but due to my mum and dad splitting up, I first moved to Birmingham at the age of 9 with my mum and 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I was the favourite with my dad, and he was settled in Cardiff and asked me to move there with him. So for a year I sampled the delights of Welsh hospitality, living in Ninian Park Road, which is of course just around the corner from Cardiff City Football Club. It was never going to work out long term, as I missed the rest of my family, and it was difficult as Dad was working out as a painter and decorator. I was always left to my own devices, and I found out a lot about Cardiff City Football Club due to the fact that our neighbour was a bloody fanatic. He and his mates would take me to the valleys to watch the Cardiff team train. But my dad would never allow me to go to a game, saying it was a hellhole. And despite my neighbour trying to turn me into a plastic taffy, there was only ever going to be one club for me. Despite many lows and not many highs, I look upon myself very fortunate that the club turned out to be Aston Villa. We moved around a lot in my early years, and I suppose the first real home we settled in was in Handsworth, ironically living in Villa Road. At the bottom of the road was a Baptist church, where my club, Aston Villa, was formed in the year 1874. Men always remembered their first girlfriend, but the villa meant more to me than some slag, who teased you with a bit of grope up top for a few weeks, whilst you wasted your pocket money on her, in the hope of that little bit more, a bit lower down. Even today, when I don't get to the game as much as I used to, I feel the same way. It's simple. You never forget your first love, do you? My first love was forged in the old 3rd Division in the year 1972, a year in when we won the league and where it was commonplace for 30,000 or so fans to turn up at every home game, massive crowds that swelled to 40,000 plus for the bigger games. My earliest recollection was when we played Brazilian team Santos at home, a night game where the Great Pele came to Villa Park and we drew a crowd of over 54,000 people. Apart from the crowd, the thing I noticed most was the Trinity Road stand and its steps to the upper tier. My earliest recollection of seeing trouble at a game was when we played Millwall in a League Cup quarter-final. I remember this huge mob of Villa running Millwall and the Villa lads, decked in the traditional Dr. Martin boots, clambering over each other to get to the Londoners. What I didn't know at the time was that a year earlier Villa took a hell of a bashing in London, resulting in some refusing to leave the safety of the train station. So for this Villa mob it was payback time, something that I appreciated over the coming years after I had taken a few kicks of my own. It gave me a buzz watching my own team's mob running another mob. You tend to think that you are almost untouchable. It was only when I started travelling away that I realised everything I had seen that night was common all over the country, and Villa were not always going to come off on top. I was learning my trade and was starting to become just as interested in what was happening off the field as it was on it. I knew, for instance, that in the Holt End, different mobs would occupy different sections. You had the King Standing mob on the right side and Quinton and Erdington lads on the left. I was picking up information all the time and was hearing a lot about the top lad at Villa at the time. A guy who was truly a terrace legend. He was known as Pete the Greek. I was thrilled when it turned out he was someone my older brother, Popeye, used to know very well, as he was a warrior who was known and respected by all at Villa. Then there was a mob known as the Steamers, who at the time were the main mob at Villa, earning their reputation from brawls that made national newspapers. Their row with Manchester United at a service station resulted in all coaches being banned from motorway stop-offs without prior appointment. I took a few beatings myself away from home, but I also enjoyed watching Villa mobs get the better of away fans on my walk back through Whitton Lane. I started to understand what it was all about, and to know where all the action was, and that Whitton Station was the place to get amongst it at home if you had any old scores to settle. Believe me, I soon had a few, even though I had only been going for a couple of years. In the year 1978, I was still more of an observer than participant in football hooliganism when we played Everton at home. I hated the Merseyside crowds with a vengeance, as on my visits there I had hot tea thrown in my face, been spat on, racially abused and taken a beating from a mob of Liverpool thugs. Everton to me were fair game, and I wanted payback. This game would later be referred to in the old Villa Times magazine, in which the club made an announcement about certain sections of Villa fans who were standing in the North Stand intent on causing trouble, and the headline bluntly read, "We don't want you at Villa Park." It was one of those games where I couldn't wait for the final whistle. I was eager, thirsty to get involved, and I had made my mind up that I was going to get hold of an Everton and make him pay for the shit that I had suffered in his backyard that season. When the game ended, the Everton fans were allowed to come out the same time as Villa, which was even better, as plenty of our lads had already left and were lying in wait. There was pure hatred in the air, as it wasn't just black lads that suffered at the hands of the Scousers. We had all heard of stories of lads getting picked off in Stanley Park, and people getting slashed and mugged and relieved of their sheepskin coats. That was the way it was there for many years, and people were sick of it. The walk from the away section to Whitton Station isn't long, and unlike some grounds where you have many opportunities to ambush away lads returning to the station, at Villa you had to strike fast. These were the days before CCTV, and if a mob went the wrong way, you were able to get at them. We had some of our best rucks in the streets surrounding Whitton Station. Sure enough, as they came, they went directly opposite in Station Road, and we were straight into them. I steamed straight in. I always had the feeling when I was running with the sea crew that we were all together, but this was pre-sea crew days, and I cannot say I was totally aware who was with me, but I simply didn't care. I had gone past that and felt safe in the knowledge that this was my turf, and I was going to make someone feel how I felt on those bad away days. I found my victim, but he caught my eye and panicked. Villa were running Everton lads in different directions, and he tried a different route and ran towards one of the houses. He started banging on this house door, shouting to be let in, and as I got near, an Asian guy opened the door and the Scouser burst in, assuming I wouldn't follow or hoping he could hide inside. He was wrong on both counts. I followed him into the back room. The Asian family, sitting down for their evening meal, watched in astonishment as the Scouser tried to get through the back door with some skinny black lunatic in hot pursuit. There was no way out, and I got him and dragged him outside. I was lost in a trance. All that pent-up aggression was fueled from when I had been on the receiving end, and I was in a total frenzy. I was pulling at him, trying to get him to look at me. If I had a knife that day, I would have used it. But now I had totally lost it. I was jumping on him, kicking him about the body like he was a rag doll, and every impact was getting harder. He was curled up in a ball with his hands over his face and trying to protect his body. After I had finished with him, I decided to take his scarf as a trophy and look back sneering at him. I felt like a warrior. Now let's delve into the actual formation of the Steamers. Let's hear from another former Villa top lad called Clarkey. This is what Clarkey has to say. The Steamers was the first Villa mob that wasn't from a particular Birmingham district, such as the Quinton and Erdington mobs of the late 60s and early 70s. It was a collection of different pockets of lads that drank in town, originally in the Imperial Hotel, then later on that made the Hole in the Wall pub in Dale end their office. As one of the lads looking on, they had a fearsome reputation, and every terrace youth wanted to be part of the Steamers, and their match-day antics have gone down in Villa Terrace folklore. They were one of the main reasons why I got involved in football violence. To get an invite on one of the steamer's coach was like getting an invite from the Queen, as it wasn't something they handed out lightly, and you had to be able to stand and fight your corner, not shape. Some of them didn't take kindly to the young pups, but some did. And like apprentices, we learned our trade from them. The steamers had a really close bond, and they probably had as many laughs as they did fights. They were a close-knit firm who drank, stood and fought together most days of the week. Some great stories from these lads have passed down into football folklore. Like Goombridge's attempts to take the Luton End in the 70s, there were also many stories about Pete the Greek too. For instance, he was like William Wallace of Braveheart fame, who people thought was 7 feet tall and had the strength of 10 men. Well, Pete wasn't 7 feet tall, but did have the build of a battleship. He was one of his own. His idea of a good Saturday night was taking his missus out to well-known blues, drinking haunts, so he could have his Saturday night fight, and he had a few of those all right. The original main lads of the steamers numbered about 50 strong. I am talking main good lads here. And there is still a hat in circulation today with names of the original members on it. Everything we have listened to is taken from the book called Villains. I will leave a link in the video description if you are interested in buying the book. I have a video all about the Villa and Birmingham City rivalry, so check that out if you enjoyed this one. If you have any good stories, then get in touch, or if you would like to have your say on events in this video, then leave a comment. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.